This is the first posture using one of 6 primary core pathways, the core back path. Observe the convex curve in back, the path of contracting muscles, producing what is known in biomechanics as a vector of force. Here you see it. Observe the lengthening in the front. We call this corresponding myofascial path the line of lengthening. You can visualize as well as feel with your own hands and your body. The back muscles contract all the way down from the calf muscles, hamstrings, buttocks, back muscles, and then the lengthening and uplift felt completely along the front of the spine. Here's another example, placing the leg forward and using the back path with the arms elevating, the shoulders coming back and down. Even the shoulders and arms are involved in the back path and are called the secondary back path. So the back path is a real transmission of a vector of force traveling through the core, the deep line of gravity and greatest efficiency, with a corresponding myofascial lengthening, all tracked by the central nervous system, and potentially, if developed, by the function of your own intentional awareness. As she bends into the posture, the angle may be increased. Doing it together, you can observe the flow. See if you can do the movements slowly and get the feel of this back path elevation. Notice how you breathe into the movement. Probably be inhaling slowly and gently. Observe how you increase the range along the back path, adding strengthening through the hips and legs. Lengthening leads to flow, and it is the flow that is the most important. Coming down to the floor, we observe another variety, a posture in yoga known as the Sphinx, or sometimes the sitting lioness posture. Using the back path, again, but in a protected, safer, more supported way, with the entire front lengthening and close to the ground. Observe and feel. Notice how it can be done wrong when you hunch the shoulders, and then drop the shoulders. Feel the lengthening in the front. Come up to the hands and knee position and sit back gently. Then coming forward, creating a flow going back. This will be known as the path number 2 in the next sequence. And now coming into the cobra posture. Again, without force, allowing the body to lengthen in the front, coming back, allowing the back to lengthen, and now lifting the legs, again increasing the extension without losing the flow by tense holding. Do it several times yourself. It will lead to further more advanced postures, described by ancient and modern yoga teachers. Notice how the body looks like coils and springs, which makes it work better, far more efficiently, and last longer. This coiling spring-like quality is made up of contractions and expansions in rhythmic fashion. Return to the rest posture, sitting back. Here gravity helps the lengthening, Do it gradually with a touch of circular rotation, and avoid forcing a stretch of the now lengthening back muscles. The sitting or semi-crouching posture is using a softer version of the core front path. You'll see the long line of lengthening all the way from the back of the legs, tailbone, all the way along the back, all the way to the head. From here, it's easy to move into the back path, cobra flow, pushing through the feet, legs, pelvis, through the spine, opening the front ribs and letting the head even lift. And then the line of lengthening in front as the pelvis drops to the floor. Now we begin to look at core front path number 2. Here the force is up through the front. The back will be spread, lengthened. The contractions will take place in front. Getting the right feel of the action through what we call the transverse abdominis complex takes time and practice. You cannot feel the muscle. If you put one leg forward, you again can increase the pull or scoop, as we call it. Putting your hands in the pelvis or on the ribs, bringing the lower front ribs in together as if zipping them loosely. Then gently and slowly initiating a scoop up. Use your hands. Avoid over-contracting. Breathe into the movement. Gently and noiselessly. Breathe into your back. Remain in a relaxed mode with your jaw soft. In the forward bend posture, we have another example of the path number 2. Done rightly, you use the core front path. As you bend, if the hamstrings do not allow, bend your knees. If you keep the backs of the legs tight, you will force stretching in the lower back. This is not good and relates to common yoga injuries. Bend and straighten only slowly and gradually until you find the flow. It's not necessary to straighten the legs right away, as this will cause distortion. In the downward facing dog posture, or the concave bridge, you can see in this classic posture that you have to use the stabilizing core front path. Again, that transversus abdominis complex. The whole feeling of drawing deep within. The whole backside from heels to head can now be lengthened by using the deep front core path and breathing easily and gently. You can help by lifting and dropping the heels. Now return to the child's posture and rest. Once you can sit back without tension or discomfort, you've entered the state of the child's pose or the easy resting pose. Observe these postures using the front path and try doing them on your own, more internally than just externally. Now we introduce you into the rotational turning paths, right and left. Here, the vector of force is through the standing and thrusting leg. The left hip is also coming forward and around and to the right, but bears no weight. The right hip on the other side is turning right, going back and towards the floor. It's on the other side that the number 3 path is taking place, like taking a curve on the road with a car. Notice what happens when you do that. Think of guiding the movement as you might drive that car. No sharp, sudden, or forced turns. Look at this spiralic action that you can observe. Advance the posture by crossing over the leg, increasing not the stretch but the lengthening. Then add in the stretching for a minimum of 3 seconds or more. If done slowly, it can be extended to about 15 seconds. After that, there's not any further gain, and the muscles might be signaled to start contracting. Again, find the flow. Continue the spiralic twisting. As you turn onto your side, you can continue into another movement with the upper body, arm, and spine sweeping, but staying connected into the spine and ribs. Notice one consistent line from the shoulder to the right shoulder on the other side. Everything unwinding in what you see and what we call a basic spiralic motion. Rest and scan the body. This posture is important, allowing the experience to be accepted or rejected by the central nervous system. Then change to the other side and do the sequences as before. Here you can see the movement from another view. Notice how the ribs are turning. The spine is turning. The right hand going back. The right hip going back. All connecting through the shoulder and into the ribs and spine and then the pelvis. A feeling of lengthening without force. Sweeping the arm around in a circular motion creates far more flow. Again, the posture can be held in the stretch mode at any point on the other side. And the movement can be reversed. As you observe, try following these designs. Discover the pathways in your own body, using your hands as directional indicators. If all the parts moved are connected, you have a path. The brain and central nervous system recognize paths of movement transmission. Now we have a side bend, the beginning of pathway number 5, the lateral paths. In this variation, you can shorten one side, lengthen the other. Even as you turn, with the hand in back of the head, you can bend the entire spine and glide it. This is a side bending pathway we designate it as pathway number 5. Do the body scan once again. Listen to the effects of what you have done. Anything you observe or the system observes that feels different serves to turn it into a learning experience rather than simply repeating things endlessly without the learning. Here again is that turn plus the lateral bend. Look at the ribs bend on the right side. You can use your own hands. The right arm sliding down, the head and neck, the spine going into a C curve. We now have a complex posture composed of aspects of paths 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because all paths interact, creating integrated functional movement from the core. Integration is far more functional and structurally beneficial than just local stretching of parts. The best highways and even trail systems are those which interconnect. Here's a beautiful posture. The lengthening is happening on the left side, along the ribs. Again, the body rests and scan, observing the effects. Yoga involves awareness. Notice if the effects are on one side or more on the other, perhaps upper body or lower. In the hands and knees position, go into a gentle cat posture. Then sit back, slowly into the right hip, which now also goes back, in the number 3 path of turning. The spine and the shoulders also rotate. As you do the movement, you'll notice one shoulder drops closer to the floor. You can go down toward the left and get the feel of the turning that goes through the entire spine rather than just stretching and forcing. Coming up. Sitting back. This is an example of a forced posture. She's trying to make it happen. Then let it happen. Forced posture lacks control and flow. The controlled posture is a relaxed and easy posture. It is the true control. Here is the sitting back and resting, coming back. In the standing, we now introduce you to the warrior pose, but we call it the grand spiralic. Look closely through the hips and ribs. The thrusting leg is now in the rear, so it is turning. The right hip is going back. And that, in effect, is to turn and twist the ribs and spine, bringing the shoulders, and especially the right shoulder, back, and the left a little forward. If you look in the back, you will see a back path. There's the vector of force. But if you look in the front, you'll see a front path. Look at the back side. The thrusting leg is now the right leg. You can push through the right leg, which is the vector of force, going through the right hip and leg. But now the left hip is going back along with the ribs on the left side and the left shoulder. Notice no lifting in the shoulder. The spiralic action lengthens and elongates. This is the most efficient path in the body. It awakens the deeper spinal muscles. It awakens your awareness of what you are doing. There is constant coil and spring-like activity in the body as you go into the posture. This is an action that appears still but has motion in it. It is not fixed and held. And so the body retains that sense even while holding the posture, as the fish in the water moves only so slightly with its fins. Let's now go to the next series of postures, of spinal twists and forward bends. The left hip going back.